Hello, and welcome back to the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Arthur, PMW's multimedia editor. On today's show, we're diving into the latest IPA Bellwether report, and we'll be talking all of the biggest findings from what was a pretty resoundingly negative report. I hate to say it, but we saw the first contraction in UK ad spend in 4 years, which is never good. I get into the details with our news reporter, Reem Makari, breaking down some early analysis, insights, predictions for the future, and exactly what the figures from that latest report mean to you and your business. Following that rather miserly discussion, I'm joined by Caspar Lee, the co-founder of marketing agency Influencer, but perhaps better known as one of the OG YouTubers. He is an expert on all things the creator economy, having been a part of the creator economy for decades now, from YouTube to Instagram to TikTok and everything in between. Caspar boasts millions of followers across all of his platforms and is quite the businessman as well, having founded Influencer as well as a couple different endeavors. He's trying to bring the power back into the creators and enlighten brands as to why they need to take them a little bit more seriously. We talk about a report that's come from Influencer that highlights the KPI disconnect and the fact that some influencers and creators are being left in the dark as to what brands and agencies really want to achieve from partnerships. An expert in the field, Caspar, breaks down exactly what brands can do to fix those issues and why it's important to invest time and effort into ensuring you're picking the right creators for your campaigns. So, with all that to look forward to, it's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. Reem Makari, hello. Welcome back to the Performance Marketing Unlocked studio. How you doing?
I'm good. It's great to be back.
Yeah, it's been a little while. You've been abroad and you've brought back the good weather and the sunshine with you.
Yes, thankfully. Although today it's dreadfully windy. And a bit awful to be outside, but it's nice that it's sunny and it's not raining.
Yeah, you got the specs on, the sunglasses, looking very trendy.
Thank you.
How has it been back in town? Enjoying it, or are you missing home already?
No, it's been good to be back. It's been good to be back in routine, back in the office as well. I kind of missed just being in the office and being able to get a coffee and have a chat with the team and be a bit distracted from work.
Yeah, no, well, we miss you here. Certainly good to have you back in the fold. And we're diving straight into what will be the news of the week. It'll dominate the discourse throughout the industry for the next week or so, that being the latest IPA Bellwether report for Q1 of 2025. And the opening quarter of the year has seen a contraction in ad spend of 4.8%. And that is the first time in 4 years that ad spend has declined. And main media has continued its downward spiral, which is another important takeaway. Reem, what do you make of it? Negative sentiment?
Yes, okay. There is a negative sentiment. I mean, it is, but I will say it's not very shocking that there's a reduction in the budget, there's decrease, because the reasons that they listed in the report were things like the US tariffs, the threat of the US tariffs, because this was actually done before Liberation Day in the US, but also things like the rising costs of national insurance and minimum wage hikes. So I mean, we see it with normal day-to-day consumers reducing their budgets and their spending. So it's not really a shock to see marketers doing the same. Although it's overall negative for this quarter, I think there's a lot of positivity being shown for 2025 and 2026 because there are plans to increase the budget then.
Yeah, we should say the outlook for 2025, 2026 and beyond isn't as negative as this return shows. There's a little bit more optimism that there's going to be more of an equal spread of ad spend across different categories, and will actually return to growth of around 2% by 2028. Great. Again, looking at the long term, I think a lot of people don't have that frame of mind at the moment, though. Certainly when you look at main media, which is down to a net balance of negative 6.7%, that's a further decline from the negative 4.3% it was at in Q4 of 2024, shows that there's a lot of short-termism across businesses at the moment, and the landscape, understandably so, as we've mentioned, not only the domestic pressures of national insurance hikes, the minimum wage increase, as you mentioned, but geopolitically things have got even more turbulent. We've got ongoing conflicts in the Middle East and Europe, and of course, Trump's tariffs, which are the talk of the town, and that is only worsening conditions. So understandably, yet we are seeing a lot of short-termism at the moment.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the report, like you mentioned, shows the decrease in main media advertising as well as market research, and the other category, which is
the opaque
still
other category. We were trying to figure out exactly what that details.
Please send us the details. But there's an investment in direct marketing that has the highest one. It's plus 9%, plus 8% for sales promotion, and then events and PR. And then when you look at 2025 and 2026, it's great to see more of a mix across the channels, because even main media advertising is getting plus 2% budget increase, and that includes print and podcast and out of home and broadcast. And I think that's great, because it shows that yes, for the moment, the marketers are looking at short-term sales, which is because they're reducing their budgets. They need that immediate revenue, but they, in the future, when they're planning their budgets, they're looking at that long-term brand awareness, as well as still mixing it with those short-term channels like direct marketing, events and PR. Although sales promotion only is at 0% increase for 2025, 2026.
We see constantly performance marketing is the bedrock of the advertising industry in times of trouble. And we understand why, because when the short term, you're suffering in the short term, it's difficult to look ahead. The one thing I will say that gives me a little bit of pause is the 2025 GDP growth forecast. That was slashed for a second successive quarter. That was brought down to 1% in Q4 of last year. That's been brought down further to 0.6% predicted GDP growth for 2025. Now, why that is significant, because I've covered the Bellwether for nearly 3 years now, so quite a while. And in that time, the GDP forecasts that we're now referencing for the long term, 2027, 2028, that look a lot more positive, it's following a similar trend to 12 months ago, 18 months ago. We were looking at these forecasts and it was like, oh, well, all being as it may, come 2025, GDP is going to be back to 2%. And then it's like, it's going to be 1.8%. That's not bad. And then as we get closer and closer to that prediction becoming a reality, here we are and it's 0.6%.
Yeah.
So my issue is, great, looks like we're just propping ourselves up. It's a wait and see approach, as IPA Director General Paul Bainsfair alluded to there, that businesses are taking a wait and see approach until things settle down, and then we'll start redistributing investment, looking more at main media, and 2026, 2027, we'll have plenty of growth. We've been saying that for 2 years now, and obviously we can't predict the future, but my question to you, Reem, is why are we not just going to see more of the same?
I find it funny that the most common word that we see from any quotes we receive about the IPA every single quarter is always cautiously optimistic. And it's exactly that. Marketers are always cautiously optimistic. We might not be seeing that change, but I think they'd still be hesitant, as I think there's still kind of that way of thinking that you need to only focus on 1 or 2 channels. And if your strategy works at this quarter and you see revenue, that means that this is going to be a sustainable strategy for the rest of the year. And then they get shocked when that doesn't end up being the reality, because especially the digital landscape is constantly changing. And what you need to be doing is investing in different channels, different mediums, consistently adapting and changing, and that's when you're going to start seeing the results, and you wouldn't be as affected by economic pressures, which is why I think maybe this time around it might be slightly better, slightly more hopeful, because we are seeing that in the budgets for 2025 and 2026. There is more of a mix. I don't think any of the channels got minus in their spend. So hopefully...
But these are forecasts, though, yeah, which are subject to change, obviously. Yeah. But if we're looking at things in real terms at the moment, it's where we're seeing the overcorrection in one direction versus the other. And basically people are saying, yes, but in the future our plans are to correct the imbalance, and we will, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to do so by X, Y, and Z date. Whether that comes to fruition, we do need to wait and see, and hope and pray with cautious optimism, as everyone likes to say. I'm being a little bit of a pessimist and a naysayer only because I don't really think that the geopolitical turbulence we're seeing, the macroeconomic factors hindering businesses here in the UK, is something we're going to see stabilise anytime soon. There's a lot of reasons why I could go into that, but anyone across the news can probably understand that sentiment. Domestically, maybe there's a bit more hope that this Labor government might stabilise things. Speaking on some of the opportunities, there's cautious optimism that the housing market here in the UK is expected to improve. Companies hopeful that increased home building and reductions to interest rates, which we have seen, could spur construction and consumer spending. So there's an opportunity there. And although inflation remains high in the UK, it is slowly on its way down. We've got some interest rate cuts. Not saying by any measure that the economy is in really good shape, and I don't think Rachel Reeves would say that herself even, but I think that's where the hope lies, is that the domestic economy can find its feet a little bit amid all of the comings and goings internationally, and certainly the housing market. That's one opportunity for the future and something that we can hope on. Sustainability was another one that was referenced, the sort of increasing adoption of sustainable practices. For instance, the popularity of electric vehicles, the introduction of new models and improvements to the sort of EV infrastructure. That might spur the job market a little bit domestically, and in the manufacturing industry we might see a little bit of a boom. So a couple of points to consider there.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, just in terms of marketers and brands trying to reach consumers, I think it needs to be less of a dependency on where the economy is going. Because I think even if it stabilizes for a little bit, things are always going to keep changing. And for the past few years, it's just been changing negatively. But I think it's changing the way that you're connecting with your consumers and considering what they're looking at and trying to find the channels that work for them. And as long as you're offering value to them and you're showing them that you're offering value, then you're still going to be able to gain their attention and gain their engagement. But don't just do things for the short term for the sake of it.
Beyond the looming threats we've discussed, the other opportunity obviously that keeps popping up and has done for some time, and we're seeing some momentum behind it, and that's AI. Specifically generative AI. I think that really is where the opportunity is for businesses. It's just you can optimize your time as best as possible. Everyone's time poor, so if you can use some AI innovation and embed that technology into your practices, you can open up a little more window for you to sit there and put thought into how to navigate these murky waters. So AIs are really can be your friend on that front. And of course, when it comes to the relationship with your consumers that you're talking about, Reem, the personalization at scale it has the potential to offer is really significant as well.
Look at you becoming an AI hopeful person.
No longer an AI Luddite. I've got to put my belief in something, and for now, that's one that. Well, we hear about our discussions with the industry and how this year is not just it's the year of AI adoption and implementing it as best we can. And at Advertising Week Europe here in London a couple of weeks ago, we were starting to see some case studies of real world use, brand side of AI, going beyond just internal use, which is obviously, I think, where it begins. But people are starting to use these tools to drive value for consumers. And I think that's the iteration AI needs to go. And that's really the opportunity, is on the personalization front, a really, really big one.
Yeah, I agree. It's working with AI and not against it.
Totally. Reem, any other points you wanted to raise? Any quotes, any insights that have come to mind from people you've heard from that impressed you or stood out?
I think we've pretty much covered it, honestly. I mean, it's like you said, the overall consensus from the comments we've gotten so far is the cautious optimism and not focusing on just short term and looking at long term growth as well. Hopefully the forecast becomes a reality, because I think that's the best strategy going forward, but we don't know how that's going to change.
It's a matter of putting words into action going forward.
Yeah.
And of course, for anyone listening, you can go to the website, and we've got an in-depth analysis of the report itself, as well as several roundup pieces with some industry insight and commentary from our panel of experts. Some of that will be live on the website now, and some of it will be coming out later in the week, so keep your eyes peeled. Reem, as always, pleasure having you. Thanks very much.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Caspar Lee, hello and welcome to the Performance Marketing Unlocked studio. Very very busy studio today. We're recording in peak lunchtime, which we don't often do. How you doing?
Very good. I saw some people arguing over the ping pong table, and then they decided to come together and make it a doubles match so they could all play. But I'm not one for doubles in ping pong. I'm not sure about you.
I think we're ones here at Haymarket. We're big on conflict resolution, so sometimes that's the way to go. So at lunch, the ping pong table is hot property, and very rarely are two people able to get a singles match. But who knows? Maybe you can have a crack after the episode.
I love that. I saw some of your values in the toilet. Like literally while I wasn't doing anything on the toilet. Anyway, let's just move on. But basically, I think one of your values should be conflict resolution.
There we go. Yeah, well, we're pretty good at it here at Haymarket and PMW, but it's a pleasure having you in the studio. And unfortunately, we're not here to talk about ping pong or what we get up to in the bathroom. We're here to talk about the creator economy, which is something you know very, very well. Now, I'm sure many of our listeners will be aware of you, Caspar, but to start things off, I just wanted you to give a brief introduction into who you are and your experience as a creator. You're very much an OG YouTuber, 8 million followers roughly on that channel, TikTok, Instagram. You've got similar numbers across those platforms too, but you've also co-founded your own business, a marketing agency called Influencer. So just take us through exactly who you are and how you got
you said
here.
it perfectly. I just you've said basically everything. You've slightly inflated some of the numbers, which I'm really happy about. But when you combine the YouTube channels, you could get to 8 million with the first and the second channel I had. But I don't do that anymore. So I started that in 2010. Took me 2 years to get to 1,000 subscribers. Then over the next 5 to 6 years, I built up an audience of about 6 million subscribers on the main channel, and then I said 2 million on the second. And then I did all sorts of things on social media, and I got to meet all sorts of amazing people. I guess my niche was trying to interview people. So I got to interview people like Ed Sheeran, Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, and a lot of other YouTubers. And when I was speaking to these YouTubers all over the world, they were all struggling to do brand deals that they actually wanted to do. It was kind of, at the time, a bit of a PR afterthought. And a brand deal is basically when a creator speaks about a brand within their content. The ROI for the brands, they were starting to see it. But I was really interested of how can we make the ROI not only good for the brands, obviously, but beyond being paid for the creators, how can we make these branding collaborations benefit everyone and ultimately benefit the audiences? So when I met Ben about 8 years ago, my co-founder of influencer.com, I kind of came in as the creator-centric co-founder, and he's more of the kind of brand-centric co-founder. And I also have a talent management business called MVE, which I started with IMGWME, the Endeavor Group, you might have heard of. Mm-hmm. And then I have a venture capital fund where we invest in consumer internet, and we really help them with all things social. So I love this space, and it's cool to have been this really struggling YouTuber all those years ago, couldn't get anyone to watch my videos other than my dog and my mom, to now being involved in business and helping other creators.
Amazing. Is it true? Someone mentioned this to me earlier, and I half don't believe it, so I might be making a fool of myself, but is it true that you met the Queen?
Oh my gosh, I bring that up every single time I can.
That's true.
And I love it that you brought it up for me so I can talk about it for the next 30 seconds. So I met the Queen twice.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. For a South African, it's a big deal. I know Australians also love we all love the royal family.
The Commonwealth.
I met her, and I can't remember what she said to me the first time because I was so nervous. But the second time she made a few jokes, and actually I got to meet her with Sir Mo Farah, who I recently was on a video. We did a video together recently, and we spoke about how that experience was amazing. And he's gone on to be knighted. I'm still
Fingers
not
crossed.
even 1% of the way there, but I'll do my best to run faster, and maybe I'll get knighted one day too.
Now, the Creator Perspectives report that was launched recently by Influencer in partnership with Crowd DNA, and it had a lot of interesting findings. And we're going to dig into some of those because you surveyed 500 creators. So it was interesting there because a lot of the discussions, obviously, around brands and agencies, and as you said there, the creators themselves can feel like a bit of an afterthought sometimes. So we'll get into that. But I wanted to first talk about why that was commissioned and why you went out there and did that survey, because essentially the question I want to ask, Caspar, is are brands using creators effectively, and why or why not?
Yeah, we felt that a lot of surveys, reports, even whenever you go to a talk at any marketing festival, was all about like what were the brand's perspective on influencer marketing? How can they do it better? And then when you usually bring a creator, it's usually a bit like high level on their content that they like making and very around the creative. And there wasn't much about the creator's perspective on the details of this industry. And as a creator myself who's really interested in the details of the industry and wanting my content to perform for brands, I thought this was a great opportunity for us to share our thoughts. I wasn't one of the 500 creators, but I share a lot of the same thoughts they do on things like how we can make brand deals more effective for both parties. Something like 57%, I believe. This might be the wrong stat, but there are a lot of stats in there. But I said I wasn't going to do this. I'm going to bring up percentages. Said that they would really like to fully understand like the wider marketing angle for a campaign. And right now they're not getting that information. So there's a big marketing campaign happening for, let's just say, Virgin right now. One of my favorite airlines. I can't say that because I actually like Qatar Airways better. But anyway, but let's just say it was my favorite airline. They're doing a massive campaign now, and if they brought in creators, sometimes, I'm not saying they do this, but sometimes brands just don't really explain the rest of the situation, and they also don't explain what are the KPIs here, like how does success look for this particular project we're doing, and they also don't fully understand how they are viewed within the campaign alongside other creators. All of these things are super important because it allows them to come up with specific content that can help reach the goals of the brand, rather than just saying, here are our creative ideas, creator, you should do these, and you can try and guess what we want out of it.
It's the KPI disconnect you've referred to it as, and it's essentially more than half of creators feel that they're left guessing as to what brands actually want. And that's really, it's fascinating to me, and I think it screams to the fact that some agencies and brands, at least, well, half in this case, they're not really giving the creators the time of day to optimize their content and get their takes on. If a creator understands exactly what a campaign's trying to achieve, then they're experts in this field and can chop and change and optimize their content to achieve those KPIs most. Whereas if they're left in the dark and just sort of told, sit here, do this, say this. I mean, I was speaking to Cal Freezy at Performance Marketing Unlocked, our headline event, and he screamed this as well. He said that there are some brands out there who aren't really respecting the craft of creators and influencing, and it leads to partnerships where the effectiveness just isn't as good as it could be.
I think as the industry has evolved, it's become very big, and there are a lot of massive stakeholders involved who are trying to figure out ways to structurally do something it requires a lot of expertise, it requires a lot of thought on every single individual piece of content, and they're trying to create like blanket rules around how they can bring their massive campaign into an influencer marketing world. And sometimes that requires them to do more box ticking exercises, like, is it a creator with, this many followers, which actually doesn't matter anymore how many followers a creator has, but they might ask that. Where are the followers located? Well, maybe they have a lot of followers in Australia. It's not for the campaign, but they also have a massive UK audience. For some reason, they're left out because they're going, you have a big Australian audience. We don't need that. And so I've literally, and it's quite a random thought, but like, I've literally seen creators with audiences 2 times bigger in the UK get left out of a campaign because they have a massive audience somewhere else too that the brand isn't trying to get. So they'll go with someone with a smaller audience in the UK just because they don't have, because it's box ticking again of like, we need these percentages. And so what I'm trying to say is, you need to get into the details of this when you're doing it, and you need to work with people who have experience doing that, so that you can do it at scale, because if I could say again to the details, but then you're going to say to me, well, I've got hundreds of pieces of content to release. But that's also not to say, like, when you spoke about this earlier, what you said there was like, you need to allow creators to understand the campaign so that they can do their own content that works for it. That's good, but you also then need to be careful not to give them too much freedom as well. And that's, as a creator, I'm saying that too. Because sometimes when I have too much freedom and too much, like, I can literally do anything, I don't know where to go. And so it's a bit of both, so that your content is seen by as many people as possible, but that content is also delivering the message you want to deliver. You can't just have a message that you want to deliver seen by one person, and you can't have a message you don't want to deliver seen by millions of people. Just because your brand's in it doesn't mean it's going to be effective.
So you need to strike that balance.
It's that balance, exactly. And having that understanding on both sides doesn't hurt at all.
Yeah, and the lack of understanding is something that I think's a bit of a problem, because another stat, this one I love because this jumped out to me, is that despite the fact that the industry has been valued at something like £24 billion in 2024, only 12% of creators produce content full-time.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people, if you had the brands, agencies, even the general public guess, they'd imagine that figure is a lot higher. So it shows that there's this myth around all creators are full-time creators. And maybe it's, and again, you spoke to there, you said number of followers doesn't matter as much. And you do have these little niche influencers that have smaller but very dedicated audiences, but they're not at a scale where brands are yet taking them seriously, and they don't have the opportunity to then create full-time.
And look, it's a really hard industry to go full-time in, because especially today, you can go viral easier than ever before. But you also, because everyone can go viral, it means you're competing at a kind of a higher level to retain that virality, because other people can just come in very quickly. Whereas when I was starting out, like, I built up an audience and my subscribers would be served my content. Now, every single time you upload, a percentage of your subscribers will see it, because having an audience does help the algorithm. But the most important part is each piece of content has to be relevant to a big group of people for it to do well. And so that is an opportunity for micro creators, because it means, especially on places like TikTok and Reels, like, if they make something really good about something that people care about, it will do well, even if they have a small audience. It just does make it tricky to be consistent, because doing that is harder than it sounds. Now,
the other thing about that is creators, there's a lot of instability in there, and there's not a lot of guarantees.
Yeah.
And like you say, one thing might hit really well and work really well, but if you're not consistent with your content creation and dissemination, then you might fall by the wayside a little bit. And the market's super competitive and oversaturated. There's a total abundance of content out there. So when it comes to partnerships, over 70% of the creators you surveyed are looking for long-term brand partnerships. How can those be better facilitated? Because I don't know necessarily if brands understand that creators are very open to the idea of coming back and working with them on a repeat basis.
The way I think brand partnerships work the best, especially long-term brand partnerships, is for brands to, look, they have to work for brands, and that's why I'm going to speak to brands here. You need to test a bunch of creators out. And as we say, they don't all have to be huge budget tests. You can work with like Wild Deodorant. Have you heard of them? The Wild, they just sold to Unilever like 2 weeks ago. For a massive sum of money, and I'm lucky to be an investor in that. And they did an incredible job working with tons of creators at scale and working out which ones performed well and which ones didn't. So if you run a campaign, I would suggest like working with as many as possible, finding out which ones work, and the ones that work, striking long-term partnerships with. And it's kind of a similar model to like venture capital, where like, you can't guarantee a creator will work every time, and you can't also guarantee this type of content works every time. But what you can do is do it enough to work out which ones are working and double down on that. And you do get good deals when you can guarantee creators long-term partnerships. All I would say is there's also a balance here, because a creator's more likely to give you a good deal if they know they're going to have one post a month for the next 12 months, as opposed to just one post. But if you ask for like 15 posts a month, then they're actually gonna have to charge more because you might be really negatively impacting like their content timelines.
But it's the long-term partnership. It's a good opportunity to create a little bit of stability in 100%. A very volatile space, both for the brand and the creator.
Exactly, and it's also great for beyond just the content that's created, which is obviously hugely important. Like that relationship, and we do it with clients like Spotify. We are able to help build these relationships, and then the client is able to not only go to the creators for the content, but also go to them for thoughts on new products coming up, like ideation sessions, like all sorts of really interesting things where creators, a lot of the creators are successful because they're experts in a field. And so to bring these people into discussions about what you're doing as a company and making them feel really part of it really helps the relationship, and the audience also sees that and goes, wow, they are true ambassadors. It's not only the marketing.
Authenticity is key, and it's a great way to build trust with the consumer and the viewers, the creator's audience. I know that my partner's a huge fan of Zoella.
Yeah.
And Zoella in her vlogs will do, she'll put on her makeup and sort of talk through the products that she's putting on, and some of them are sponsored, but the ones that are, you can tell that it's relationship there. There's a bit of trust, and my partner certainly, based on her spending habits, believes in those partnerships and thinks that they're real and authentic. I imagine they are.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And that's what, I was speaking to someone the other day, he's like, influencer marketing, like, obviously, when it first started, it must have been great, but now, is it that, you can't trust that the creator actually cares about the product because they're just doing tons of brand deals? And yeah, that is the case for some creators, and those are the creators you don't want to work with. The creators you do want to work with are the ones that have audiences who trust them enough to know that even if they're doing a brand collaboration, they're doing it because they've decided like this is something they want to work with, not just for the money, it's because they actually like it too. And you mentioned like Zoella, she has the ability to choose who she wants to work with, and that's really also why I wanted to co-found Influencer back in the day, is because when I started, there wasn't that much choice of brands to work with.
You're giving creators a bit more
agency. So if you
agency.
have more choice, more opportunity, it allows you to go for the ones that really work. And that doesn't just help the creators, that helps the brands they work with. And so you really can't put this marketing channel into one particular type of group of influencers. There's so many across the board. There's so many different types. There's so many who have different levels of trust, and you have to pick the ones that work for you.
Were there any that worked for you when you're a creator? Is there a partnership that you look back on and you think, wow, that was something that I really enjoyed being a part of, and I think it worked for my audience, for me, and for the brand? Yeah,
so one random one that comes to mind is Maltesers. Now, I love Maltesers, but I wanted a brand to help me do something I couldn't really do on my own. And I was doing pranks at the time. So I pranked my friend by filling up his car, quite a big car, with Maltesers. Don't worry, they were Maltesers that were going to go to waste. Apparently they were defected Maltesers. But we literally had a crane, we had a whole camera crew, we had this like massive thing, and I was able to make this really fun piece of content that I wanted to do because it was part of my kind of prank war with this person. And I thought that was just a great example of, yeah, the product's great, I love the product, people know I'm good with it, but like, what have they really helped me do that my audience is like, oh, I can't believe they were able to help Caspar do that. And we became like a team in that way, and the audience really engaged with that. But there's so many, across the years that I've enjoyed doing. Even I am like currently a Spotify ambassador, and I absolutely love, I love DJX, and we went to LA, and I literally got to meet DJX himself. And it's like cool stuff like that where people know that, these are things I genuinely care about, and being able to meet them in real life or go to events or do things like opportunities that I can't do on my own, I think audiences resonate with.
Now, you've experienced the boom of the creator economy in your pretty much decades of experience being in it, both as a creator and someone working behind the scenes with your various business endeavors. Looking ahead to the future, what do you think the ecosystem is going to look like? What are some of the biggest challenges and opportunities facing people?
Yeah, so I think I'll start with the opportunities. I think a massive opportunity is going to be for brands around people who have done enough campaigns over the years, building up data on what creators and what creatives work, like treatments and so on, and being able to harness AI to like work out why that worked, how we can make that work again in a slightly different way, really using AI to pull out data in a more kind of easy way than has ever been possible in the past. Literally being able to talk to it about ideas and campaigns you want to do. And that's what we're working really hard on that. And I think that allows the people who have been doing this for a long time to have a really good advantage and can help their clients with that. In terms of dangers, there's also with AI, I think the opportunity for creators is, being able to make content at scale for themselves, being able to make content sweat, remixing it, doing all sorts of things. But at the same time, there's going to be a lot more content out there created by AI that creators are going to be competing with for time. I still think that people prefer to watch people when it comes to being interested in someone's life story, being interested in their perspective. But when it comes to simply redistributing information, be that like some piece of news or like this is a top 10 list of things in London, but not like maybe your perspective on it, just literally a list, that kind of content can now be easily made. And so I think it's something that people need to watch out for, and they need to be like, what kind of content do people want to see by people? Which I actually think is going to become more important going forward as we enter this world.
What about the talk of the people's attention spans sort of diminishing and, we've seen the rise of short form content. Do you think that's going to continue and content's just going to get shorter and shorter and shorter? Or that slightly longer form stuff, the YouTube, the vlogging, Twitch, streaming, is that something that's going to come? Does it ebb and flow a little bit?
It does ebb and flow. And you're seeing a lot longer form content doing well again, especially on places like YouTube. There's like now content creators who literally film themselves going around the city, like it's like a 2.5 hour video, and they're just like meeting people, and like millions of viewers are engaging with this versus like a 10-second version of that. You're seeing podcasts obviously doing very well. You're seeing kind of unfiltered discussions and debates doing really well. You're seeing even like golf channels where people are playing for 2 hours, like a round of golf, and those are doing really well.
Guilty.
So, exactly, I love it, and I think that kind of proves that I do think as a society, when something does really well for a point, I think we do get kind of bored of it. Not saying we'll ever be bored of pure short form, like that's also there's a very big importance there, but I'm talking about like the beastification of YouTube, and he said it himself, like his stuff went so quick, so edited, that everyone started copying him. The whole world started doing content like that, and then people were just like, hey, we're looking for something slightly different. And so you're going to see this ebb and flow. Of course, it really depends what country you're in, what category you're in. There's people on all different levels of what they want at this stage. But in general, it's definitely not goodbye for long form.
No, and the takeaways there are there's always going to be room for creative, original content to appeal to people. Yeah. And for brands and agencies, there's just going to be more of an abundance of audiences out there for you to work to tap into. And you've got all these tools at your disposal to find these really valuable, high-value audiences that are going to interact with your creators and with your brand and the products that you're putting 100%. Out there.
Couldn't say it better myself.
Amazing, Caspar. Well, before we round out the show, we can't let you go before we do our resell me a pen challenge to refresh the listeners of how this works and yourself. I'm getting up my little 60-second timer as I speak right now, and you've got 60 seconds to resell me an outdated product or service. Before your time starts, can you reveal to me and the listeners what it is that you're going to attempt to resell?
Motorola Razr phone.
Motorola Razr phone. This appeals to me. This is something I had back in the day too. So 60 seconds on the clock. Caspar Lee, resell us the Motorola Razr phone. That little flip one from back in the day. Terrific. Time starts now.
You know, we got a bit fed up of flipping it open because we wanted instant access to our phones. But actually, we've now realized over time that we're getting so addicted to scrolling at our screens and our notifications that we're automatically doing it without even deciding anymore. And what I love about a Motorola Razr phone is you get to make the decision of whether or not you're going to engage with your phone or not. Right now, the only way I can do that is by flipping my phone face down on a counter, but you don't know how dirty that counter is. So the brilliant thing about a Motorola Razr phone is it's got that kind of built-in child lock to remind you that you're making a conscious decision to open that phone and engage with the world when you should be having a candlelit bath.
Amazing. You've got 20 seconds to spare there. So
it also just sounds so good when you open and close it, and it's very resilient as a phone, and you're less likely to break your screen when you drop it.
Terrific, Caspar. I think there's a lot of passion that came through there. I also enjoyed, not a lot of people when they're pitching old things, they go down the hygiene route as well, of making sure that, you're putting it down on a dirty table.
But then I just realized that both sides of the Motorola Razr phone are going to also get dirty. So I don't know if that hygiene route...
Undercut yourself slightly. No, but I think that's great. And this idea of sort of putting a little bit of a child lock of, as you've described it, on your phone usage. There's so many apps out there that try and do that for you. But going back in the old school, get yourself a phone that, look, you've got to go that extra mile, flip 100%. It open every time you want to engage, and you can sort of pick it up. And the thing about these Androids and iPhones is the second you look at it, comes to life straight away, and often will just go straight in, recognizes your face.
Maybe we need maybe it should take you have to like do a code and it takes 5 minutes to unlock.
A little delay or something, and it's just like, are you sure you want to lock in? But or you could just get the old Motorola Razr and look at it and go, am I, what? Not yet.
I love it how we're on a performance marketing podcast saying we don't want people looking at screens. That's what it's like.
I don't think we need to worry about stopping people looking at screens. Caspar, it's been an absolute pleasure having you in the studio today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And that concludes this episode of the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. Big thank you to my guests this week. Firstly, Reem Makari, PMW's news reporter, for joining me at the beginning of the show to chat about the latest IPA Bellwether report for Q1 of 2025. Lots to digest there, so don't be shy and go and check out our full analysis all across the website, as well as industry commentary. Of course, a big thank you to Caspar Lee, the co-founder of Influencer and YouTube extraordinaire. Cannot believe he managed to meet the Queen twice. That's quite impressive. For joining me to talk about the creator economy and some of the work Influencer and he himself and his co-founder Ben have been doing to bring creators and brands closer together to ensure that those influencer partnerships are working for all parties, creators, brands, and of course, and perhaps most importantly, the consumer. I would be remiss, of course, if I didn't thank you, the loyal listener, for tuning in each and every fortnight as you do. We will be back in a fortnight's time with another episode of the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. In the meantime, don't forget to give us some love on social media. You can watch clips and full episodes and catch up on all the latest to do with the show and the PMW brand more broadly on LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. And of course, tune into Digital Disruptors. We've got a couple of episodes out live, and that's hosted by the brilliant Reem Makari with some of the winners from PMW's 30 Under 30. That's our little spin-off podcast series that's doing super, super well. So I hope you're all enjoying that. There's more to come on that front. In the meantime, have an amazing week, and bye for now.